Oh my God, I feel famous.
Hey,
y'all. Welcome back to La Serranita. This is our first ever official video conversation at a new studio, at a new location. We're back. It's been a minute. It's been a really long time, actually. We haven't had a sit-down conversation in a while. We haven't been in front of the mic, Melly and I, in a minute, but we're ready. We miss y'all. And it's actually been a really long time since we've even introduced or reintroduced video to our podcast and project. So, Melly, how are you feeling?
It is officially the first episode back, but this time around we're starting season 3, and we're not in our usual space.
No. Yeah, season 3 is officially a go. Melly and I have been a bit MIA from everything La Serranita related because, our own creative endeavors have taken us so many directions. I think we would want to start off with that first because we want to catch up with y'all. As you know, Melly, we've really built a community of just friends online, but we haven't really checked in with what's been going on, what we're up to. If you have us on our personal socials, then you know, but if you only really update through La Serranita episodes, it's been a while. It's been over a year, right?
A lot of things have happened outside of these episodes. Creatively, we have been flowing, we've been launching new projects, and we've been in front of the camera, but not behind the mic.
Yeah, in front of the camera in different ways. Melly, you're a photographer. I do my own thing, but in terms of photography, you've been really expanding your career, and that's why we've also had to take a bit of a break from La Serranita. We've tried picking up the mic. We've tried even recording at our own house because we really miss that element of just sitting in front of a camera and having that more personal conversation.
We used to catch up with all of you through audio, and how La Serranita started was through visuals, and that was during a time where we were at home. We were missing being social, but we knew the conversations we were having at the time were so needed outside of our home, and that's when it got launched onto social media.
IGTV was really our start. That's actually how La Serranita started. Before it was an official podcast on Spotify and all streaming platforms. Before we transitioned to full audio, we were video. And Melly and I were literally in our one-bedroom apartment. We set up her phone and we just started. I think it was my phone, huh? And then we just started recording. And
the first episode didn't even have a title. We still knew, okay, this is just a conversation. We'll see what happens. The result was that a lot of you wanted more, and
you guys actually asked for a podcast. We were just we just wanted to sit down and chat because it was during COVID. It was peak COVID. It was 2020, I think November.
At the end of 2020. Yeah,
November 2020. And Melly and I, without really thinking much of this, I know we've talked about it in, I think, our first season of La Serranita or second, about the start of La Serranita, because it was just very casual. We really did not think much of it. But Melly and I were more so angry at the lack of representation of Indigenous voices online. And that specifically started through Twitter. Twitter or TikTok, we saw a video. And
yes, TikTok was brand new, at least in our generation, because the kids were using it beforehand. At least I was working in elementary at an elementary school setting, so I knew my students were big TikTok fans. But as older folks, we didn't know what that platform was going to be. And there was a video that went viral, but that conversation went into Oaxacan Twitter, which it was still Twitter.
And if you don't know, Oaxacan Twitter is actually kind of, at least to us, I guess because we're Oaxaqueñas, but you have Black Twitter, you have Oaxacan Twitter, and then you have Mexican Twitter too, but then in that niche of Mexican Twitter, you have Oaxacan Twitter, and that's more so LA communities, Oaxaqueños out here in LA who really organize, not only in LA, but just general, more so California. We've also connected with people in the East Coast through Twitter alone, and so when a conversation kind of riles up there, it really riles up, and so it was anti-Indigenous rhetoric being spread in this video. Melly and I were just angry. COVID didn't allow us to get together with our Oaxacan community in person that we have in LA. So we said, okay, if we can't sit down and meet with our community to talk about how we're feeling, because, you know, hearing anti-Indigenous rhetoric as an Indigenous person, you're going to have some thoughts. So because we couldn't do that, Melly and I just thought, since we can't see our friends, we're going to talk to them online through Instagram. And again, it was just like, because we wanted to directly respond to this conversation and put in our 2 cents as sisters. Melly and I have always just really seen eye to eye with a lot of Indigenous conversations and input. And so, yeah, we just wanted to start the conversation, and that's kind of just how everything came to be. And now we're in season 3.
Season 3, I know. And IGTV was maybe a 6-part series, because after that we knew like 15 minutes is not enough. We want to record episodes.
Yeah. And Instagram gave us a lot of limitations in terms of uploading longer conversations. Again, we couldn't cover everything in just 15 minutes, so we ended up moving it to Spotify and other streaming platforms. And that was really because people in our community just commented and said, you need to put these conversations on streaming platforms. And so Melly and I, during COVID, I remember I was still finishing my junior year of college during COVID. And y'all gave me additional homework, and I sat down and researched kind of how to start a podcast. Melly and I did this together, but we didn't really have this goal of sitting down like this and having a team of people just record us. You know, it was mainly, we want to have intimate conversations with our community, but then down the line, we ended up realizing our community expands outside of just the Oaxaqueños in LA and in California. You know, the Oaxaqueños actually in Oaxaca, in the East Coast, in different parts of not only the U.S., but like are really connecting with us through online engagements. So we're now able to like use La Serranita as, again, this platform to bring in important conversations, but also connect with other Oaxacans that we had no idea like knew of us or knew about the Oaxacan community in general and like their social media presence. So that's been really exciting.
And even then, like during the time that we're actually like releasing these episodes during the IGTV series, there was a time where mutual aid was huge in LA, and we were also front and center. Mm-hmm. Food distributions, community cookouts, and mutual aid was always like at the core, has always been at the core of what Oaxaqueños are known for. Mm-hmm. So creating mutual aid conversations online, but also now meeting those people and collaborating with them has still been part of our day-to-day. Even up to now, like La Serranita is well like appreciated. We're known in our communities, but because we also share how our growth individually has really helped us out, but we also continue creatively spreading into new spaces. I, in particular, know that Aní loves music, and like that's who we are as well. Like our mom did raise us in a CD shop, but now your entire role, like you've graduated. We've talked about that. You had a whole episode, but also now you work in the music industry. So how has that been, Aní?
Actually, I think that's where we left off season 2, because I had just gotten this position. I'm working now for a music foundation, and Pandia Music Foundation, look us up. We offer incredible resources to just all musicians that need it, but I had just connected with them. I had just started working. I was still 22 at the time. I think I was 22 when I got this position. And no, I was 21, and I turned 22 a couple months into this role, but I connected with them, and this is also a reason why we had to take a hiatus, because being a big girl in a big girl job, it takes a lot of time, and also, and we can touch on this in future conversations, because Melly and I have talked about not only the culture shock that comes with attending a predominantly white institution like Berkeley, but also the culture shock that comes with being in a work environment that's just not representative of your culture and community, but knowing that, and this is why I really appreciate where I work, because we dedicate spreading these resources and sharing these resources to underrepresented musicians of color in particular, and those are the type of musicians that even ignited my love for music. You know, it's the Latinos, it's Mexican music, it's LA hip hop, Spanish hip hop. Like, I'm more interested in the artists that really look like me, that sound like me, or that, you know, they sound like the tunes and music that we grew up with in La Serranita at the store, you know.
Pico Union.
Exactly. It was a bit of an adjustment also because I ended up just like, it was my first full-time role, and when they say full-time, they're not kidding. And the music industry is also very fast-paced, which has been really exciting, but I've had to learn so much with this role. And yeah, it's been officially a year. I just celebrated a year with Pandy in March, and it's been pretty exciting. That's been taking a lot of my time, and I guess just adjusting to kind of this new setup of my life that I have to, the responsibilities that come with being an adult now that I graduated and everything. But it's been nice also just exploring this new side of my career.
And even diving into all the different titles that come into the music industry. And I know that's something you will share.
Oh, yeah. It opened me up to a world of just possibilities. I told Melly Melly, my mom, and I have sat down and had dinner conversations, and I've shared with them just not only the connections and the people I've been able to meet, but also, and mind you, this is like my intro to the music world. I'm starting to explore my long-term career options, and I'm looking into going back to school. I did say when I graduated that I wanted to take a good break. It's been about 2 years now, and I think I'm ready to maybe start grad school soon. So that's something that's been taking up my time, just setting myself up for success in the next coming years with my career. But that has been kind of my journey. I know, Melly, last time we left off, you were still in school, reconnecting with your school journey, but also trying to explore more avenues for your photography. I think you've been taken into so many directions. Do you want to talk more about that?
It has been fun. It's been cool to see myself in these spaces because photography has always been a hobby, but now actually taking photo classes and learning more and connecting with more creatives outside of just my bubble has helped.
It's so funny you say that because to you it's always been a hobby, but for a really long time in our community, you've been Vida con Mel, the photographer, you know, because not only have you really documented our family and our upbringing and really my entire life, as we've said, but also you've been able to take the root of your inspiration, our family, into so many new spaces. And not only our family, but in general what Baja California stands for and what you're really rooted in. So, like, I know you say that now you're exploring, like, photography as a career, but to us in the community, you've been a photographer, you know?
Very true. Thank you. I oftentimes don't even acknowledge that on my own. So also getting the opportunity to see new work being presented and for the audience to actually come through and share how cool that has been for them to see. And now it inspires me to create even more. I've been diving into like actually creating docuseries for the long run, and that ignites even more like creative inspiration for myself through Vida con Mel, La Serranita, of course. So I know creatively we're always like working on something new, but people are also seeing that work and they see how much joy it brings for us to collaborate with them. And that's been interesting.
Okay, let's talk about that because we were able to kind of collaborate with Mom because of you, but it's a whole timeline since we've been gone because we stopped filming, I want to say April of 2023. Officially, yes. And even then, I think that last episode that we recorded, we weren't able to publish for some other reasons, but it's in the vault for now. But after that, it was, I think, summer of 2023 was the first KOI anything, right? Like
the campaign, yeah. So I did a campaign in the summer. That was pretty fun. That was just me diving into a creative opportunity that just came up.
And that was you and Mom?
At first, so the summer one was like just me, and then Mom was invited into a summer project with kids of immigrants.
Yeah.
Yes.
So, okay, so then you started first alone. With your modeling debut, right? And that was with, I mean, for it to be your first modeling gig, that was with who?
That was with Rare Beauty, and that one came super unexpectedly. I wasn't even signing up to model, but I had pitched that project to one of our cousins and one of my really good friends, where I was like, you guys should go sign up to model for this like opportunity. They slept on the opportunity, so the next day I was like, you know what, if you guys aren't going to do it, I'm going to sign up. I got picked up to be part of that.
And that was with a bunch of other creatives that you also already know.
Yes, a handful of them I knew, but then I met Alondra. I met so many different people that day.
That's how when you met Alondra. Oh, shout out Alondra. Wow.
It was really fun, and that was like a pinch me moment because this is new to me. This is new to both, like all of us. Yeah. And a few months later,
it's like the universe heard you're a model now. What can we sign you up for? Because then KOI hits you up. And you've been actually connected with the Kids of Immigrants team for what, since the start?
Yeah, 2016. Wow. I was fresh out of high school when I saw that this brand was coming up. I was like, the title sounds really cool. Their mission.
Yeah, if you say Kids of Immigrants, like, we're Kids of Immigrants, what do you mean? Who are you? And what is this about? And I think that's how you just like really got captivated by them.
We actually met Daniel during a concert night, and I was just like, wait, I have to go introduce myself.
This was a Google concert?
Yes.
I remember this. I was tiny. I was like 17. Oh my gosh. Yeah. I remember that. And that was just like the start of your connection with Daniel, who is one of the co-founders of KOI. And then fast forward a couple years later, we're 2023. He hits you up, or who hit you up?
2022.
Okay.
And their team, Debbie reached out, and then I had already met Debbie. It was like an opportunity that just came up. They really wanted to incorporate families, and Mom, you and I were like in the space. So we shared this, we helped announce this new collection, which is We Are Our Parents' Wildest Dream collection, and we were invited into the space. That was really nice because our mom has always been received with open arms. Yeah. It's always been nice to see them acknowledge that we are two like creatives that love music but also like love community.
From Pico Union. Yes. Yeah. And I know you know more so of like the start of KOI. And for those that don't know, KOI is a clothing brand, but also just a whole mission to represent kids of immigrants and advocate for kids of immigrants and their parents who have adjusted to coming into and settling into a whole new country. It was started by Daniel and Wale.
Wale, yes.
And they were was it started in Pico Union?
Yes, so this space started in Pico Union in their apartment, and they're not from LA, but they knew like, okay, we're in this predominantly Central American, like indigenous community. Daniel is very proud of his Hondureño roots, and Wale, like knowing that he also like just loves and represents his family, but also their love for clothing came into play. So they would go into like thrift stores in like the neighborhood, and they would pick up fabrics. A lot of their work started with hand stitching. So when I found out about how they were starting, I was just like, this is so dope. It's genuine. I would full on like support their dreams. I just knew like, okay, I'm going to save up my coins. I'm going to purchase like the bag, like all of it.
Like a pretty well-known brand collabing with Apple, Nike, Bucanas. They're at Coachella. Like, again, these are two kids of immigrants with a dream starting in a Pico Union apartment. And to us, it was always just a very inspirational story that we were able to witness. But not only that, it's really heartwarming to us when we see brands really start in our communities and continue maintaining that authenticity, that genuine connection to the people you're trying to represent. Because unfortunately, sometimes that's not the case. Sometimes it's just a money grab for people. But Daniel and the entire team has really just continued to be not only just so genuine, but so welcoming to our family, to our mom, because we've gotten opportunities to connect with them through different events. They're always just so inviting. But not only that, during this specific launch of like our parents' wildest dream collection, it was highlighting not only the kids of immigrants, but the parents themselves. And so through that, they thought of you and they thought of mom, you know? And so, yeah, that was after Rare Beauty. It was KOI. KOI was just I was there, but I wasn't part of the campaign. I was there with Oreo right next to me. And that, just being a witness to that, because I know you're closer to the team. I don't know much of the team until that day. Just to see how inclusive and like accommodating they were, because I always say this, I always say this, I learn a lot about people by the way they treat our mom, by the way they treat our family, our elders in our family, and just the respect that they automatically gave her, the space. They knew it was her first time modeling. My mom was nervous. She obviously, like, when there's also a language barrier, they get very nervous, but Daniel and the rest of the team, whenever they could speak Spanish, they did, like, they, you know, and without a doubt or without any questions, they just accommodated to her. And
even the music that was being played that day, like, they made sure, like, oh, okay, the cumbias are out. Yes, like, how comfortable can you feel in this space? And they made sure of that. So I do appreciate that team. It will always be love, yes, for KOI. Now, slowly after, a few months after, I get a message, and it was an invitation to be part of the Latinx Heritage celebration for Yitty. Mm-hmm. And for those who don't know, Yitty is a brand
founded by Lizzo.
Lizzo, yes, and Fabletics. Mm-hmm. So I just knew, I was like, wait a minute, I want to read up on this. What is this? The opportunity was shared, and the goal was to have different generations captured and to share this story, right? So I started getting on calls with them. My mom was, of course, going to be a subject, and it was said to be my mom and I. And then my mom was like, no, pitch it to Aní. Like, I don't know how I feel about this.
She got a little intimidated.
Of course. And at the same time, she was just like, oh, well, they're asking you. And I was like, no, they also want you in this.
Yeah, because in that email, they specifically said, like, I don't know if they asked for mom specifically, but they wanted to represent, like, a family dynamic.
Yes. Mm-hmm. And so that's where my mom was like, well, you and your sister with La Serranita. And once we were in conversation, it was like, well, now can it be you, your sister, and your mom? Yeah. Once my mom said yes, we ended up in their headquarters.
It just happened all so fast because I think none of us had any idea what the shoot would be, what it would be like. We just knew, oh, it's Latinx Heritage Month. We always have this conversation of at least us as Oaxaqueños, do we fit into the Latinx title or identity? And it's, for a lot of Oaxaqueños, it's very complex. It's very complex for us. But in that sense, we thought of it as, well, you know what? Oftentimes we're excluded of the Latino identity. And this time they're asking specifically Oaxaqueños to represent the Latino identity because they want to be inclusive of all type of identities that really lie into this one title. And so we're like, let's do it, because if anyone's going to represent specifically Oaxaqueños, like, you know, that'd be really cool. But we really had no idea what we were signing up for because, mind you, I had never modeled. I actually can't fully model because I have, anyways, it's the whole thing. But that's why I didn't sign up for it, and I thought mom would be perfect. It just turns out that they wanted us three. That's actually when we got, well, you had been connected to Brittany, but that's the first time I learned about Brittany Bravo, her talent, her amazing vision. And again, I learned a lot from her just based off how she treated my mom. And the entire Yitty team. The entire Yitty team was so kind, like, amazing. The way they styled us, like, they were trying to really understand us and make us, like, feel comfortable. And we were. It was just an overall amazing experience. But those pictures, I had no idea they would come out, just how beautiful they turned out. It was just an incredible experience from start to finish. And that ended up, well, Latinx Heritage Month is September. But yeah, that ended up coming out. And I think that was really also a pivotal like event for us to connect with Brittany outside of just online, because you had already known her. I had heard of her work but never connected with her. And then when we, were able to meet with her through Yiddy and everything, like, that is a solidified friendship that campaign gifted us. But not only that, like, yeah, when we announced that, when they posted that on their Instagram, like, the support we got from everyone online was just so beautiful. And there we go. Like, we haven't been in front of the mic for a really long time, not because we don't want to, trust me, we miss doing this, and we miss just having conversations with all of you, but we've been busy on the back end.
And a handful of you have shared space with us in person. A lot of the people that started with us, like, just through comments when our first episodes were launched, are now really good friends of ours. I could name a handful just off the top of my head right now, but it's really nice to see how they still bring up La Serranita and they encourage it, but also know, like, you're super busy. Individually, we both take on different projects, and at times we have had to rest, but it's nice that a lot of our friends are now, like, extra mindful of, like, oh, I have to be present and celebrate, because it's taken time. It's taken, like, there's love there, and there's, like, so much, like, creative endeavors that are about to come up, and they love being part of it, and we love when they get to be part of it. So the fact that now we get to bring visuals back is really nice.
And this was at first not even intentional, because when we took a break, Melly and I knew that we wanted to take a pretty long break, not only to rest and kind of dive into our own creative, journeys individually, but we also just wanted to sit down and say, like, or brainstorm more of what we want for La Serranita in the long run. And one thing both of us identify is, like, we miss video. We miss, talking not only to each other, but just really having that dynamic. And a lot of you have also requested video, because some of you like to sit down and watch your podcast, which, I like listening to podcasts. So I was okay with the first method, but I know other people like
I love visuals.
Yeah, like, she loves sitting down and watching a podcast, and I understand that. So we wanted to bring that back. And again, that was kind of the root of La Serranita. So just coming back to that, and down the line, before I even, like, go there, because unintentionally we ended up kind of seeing a new vision for La Serranita without, even exploring that all too much. We ended up getting a grant opportunity shared with us last year.
We applied at the end of last year. Actually, yes.
Like in September. No. We applied in the summer of 2023, because Leslie shared this, because we started training, like, in October. So we got this opportunity shared with us by our friend Leslie. Shout out Soy Hood. And we love Soy Hood. And it was a grant opportunity provided by BizStoop. Shout out to BizStoop as well. And in the application, they were essentially asking us, we want to give you this amount of money. What are you going to do with it? And we're like, that's a very interesting question. And we were applying under La Serranita, and it was our first official grant applying under La Serranita. We got it, and in that application, we kind of just looking through the questions they were asking us, we ended up brainstorming, you know what? Not only do we want to introduce visuals back to La Serranita and this concept that we have, the whole point of why we started La Serranita was to have community conversations. At the time, we couldn't have guests. We couldn't have any of that because of COVID. We're in a whole new stage, and, now we're able to bring in guests. And Melly and I really sat with that. With our BizStoop application, we proposed to have, in a way, community roundtables. And now we presented
Las Voces del Pueblo.
Yeah, and so we're going to be having a community discussion with a bunch of our own friends and dear community members. The goal of Las Voces del Pueblo is to really have intergenerational conversations. So when we talked about, even why Melly and I have the dynamic we do, it's because we've had conversations with our family, not only in our generation, like our cousins and stuff, but our elders.
And not just in LA.
Exactly, like back in our pueblo.
When we visit, they've incorporated us into the conversation. It's never been like, oh, you guys are little kids, like go play and, don't listen into this. It's like through our mom being the community organizer, she is individually, and us seeing her also, like, it brings up questions like, oh, like, what's going on right now, and why is it stressing you out this much? Yeah. And so then we get to like really see how she expresses herself and what concerns she has, and it gets shared to like how our aunts are feeling, how our grandma used to feel, and how our elders back home also feel. So being able to have those conversations, and now seeing how the community in Oaxaca, California has also gotten the space to express through socials, but also through ventas de comida or mutual aid, events that are for Oaxaqueños. We've gotten the chance to hear them out. And for us, my favorite episode of La Serranita, audio-wise, was City of Ghost, because of that episode of Oaxaca.
It was like our second episode.
Town. Yeah, and shout out to Elizabeth Tito, but that conversation with Maqueos, with Tani Maqueos and Yulisa Maqueos, also brought up that conversation of different generations sharing the importance of community.
Yeah, and music is with City of Ghosts and Maqueos. But yeah, like with our community, we've definitely, again, thought a lot about our own upbringing and how our elders have really been inclusive to us, and sometimes not inclusive, and why we want to change certain dynamics and certain kind of conversations that happen in not the like general Latinx community, because we can't speak on behalf of that. What we can speak on is the Oaxacan experience, our Oaxacan upbringing, specifically being from Pico Union as two young brown girls who were raised with parents that had a creative sense to them. And for their own reasons, we've talked about why the store had to become a dry cleaner, and that was for survival, because CDs after a while got out of style. If it were up to us, we would bring them back, and trust me, we're gonna try.
We talked to Mom about it too.
It wasn't by choice that we had to let go of La Serranita, but given that we did have a couple years being raised in a CD shop in a world of music, we take that and we use it to inspire these conversations. And the reason why these conversations started was because we wanted to not only give our own 2 cents to these conversations that involve our community, but we want to hear from our community. And now that we're able to bring in guests, now that we're able to even think about who would we want to have a conversation with, this idea of a community roundtable through Las Voces del Pueblo came about, because we want to be inclusive of the elders, Gen Z, Gen X, millennials, and the newer generation. I have been one of the youngest in my family. You're somewhat in the middle. And now we haven't gotten any new cousins, we don't have any younger cousins, but we do have older cousins growing up, thinking about starting their family, whatever, and our family down the line will expand. We want to set that up to be inclusive of the younger generation that is to come and that we currently have. We have some younger cousins, nieces, and nephews. Their opinion to us means the world as well, because, like we say, the youth really lead the way. They're the ones that have to deal with this world that we set up for them. And they should also have a say in it. So through the project, we propose to have intergenerational conversations, not only bringing a guest, but a set of guests that represent different generations in this conversation. And so we're going to be exploring different topics that not only touch on Oaxaca, California, and the Oaxacan experience, but also, again, always in a way tie back to our love for music, the role that music has played in the Oaxacan community or for Latinos in general. There's a big movement right now in the Latino music that like talks about representation, and it's always the case, right? We're always like really in awe of the new up and coming artists because in a way they represent us or they don't represent us, you know, and tying it back to the conversation of music but also community is kind of the goal of this new project, and it's all thanks to Bistu.
Yes, they really aligned with our vision and they encourage us to create. So we've been thinking about this project for a while now. It has been received with so much love, and soon enough you will be seeing new faces joining us, a lot of faces that you've seen online, a lot of conversations that you've gotten the chance to participate online with, but now they're also going to get the mic.
And they're going to be documented here through La Serranita, through, you know, this platform. But because a lot of these important conversations have been had on Twitter. They've been happening on Twitter. I personally, or X, I deleted that app. But I think that platform really was a very important platform for us to build community. And it's died down. Now we don't really have that. And I'm not even going to touch on that.
Academically, we've seen spaces now accept and really acknowledge Indigenous scholars. Yeah. During the pandemic, during the start of this entire project, we were also seeing, and I was hearing, the setup for Oaxacal, which was Aní's. Aní took participation in this.
Well, it was a collective effort. So many names that I want to acknowledge, but yeah, Oaxacal was started during the pandemic, and it was to see the initial steps of starting a student organization led by Oaxaqueños for Oaxaqueños. It had been done in Berkeley before. When I first joined, or when I first started at Berkeley my freshman year, I had a girl tell me, because she found out I was Oaxacan, she asked me, I think I was in a class, and she told me, oh, well, there's a Oaxacan, like, Facebook group. And I joined it, inactive since, like, 2012. Girl, it was, like, 2018. And immediately I knew we need a space for Oaxaqueños. But I had no idea there was that many Oaxaqueños at Berkeley. And through Oaxacal, we were able to start this designated space for us, and we saw the power in numbers.
So it even became an entire class option.
It started as a class, and then it became a student organization. So starting the class, it was like a course on Oaxaca, like knowing the the history of Oaxaca. It was designed for Oaxacan students who just want to hear about their own, because Oaxaca's huge. So you really never stop learning about Oaxaca because we come from one pueblo.
Region.
Exactly. Yeah, one specific region, one pueblo in that region. That region alone counts for so many pueblos, and then you take into account that we have like 7, 8 regions. Like, we're gonna be here for a while if we talk about everything. So it was like a basic intro to the history of Oaxaca. I took it, got connected to the main students behind like this idea of, oh, well, aside from this class, we want to start Oaxaca. And I'm like, well, how many Oaxacans do we have? And then in that class, I was like, all of you are Oaxacan, you know? And so we were like, we could really make this happen. This is something that we see a need for. And Oaxaca started. Then came Oaxaqueños de USC. I think UCLA has a...
they came back. I feel like UCLA also...
UCLA had
that history.
Point is, now we have student organizations that are Oaxacan-led for Oaxacan students, slowly expanding throughout private schools and UCs and hopefully CSUs soon. It's been a really great kind of dynamic to see.
Yeah, so it moved from like social media onto like, okay, if you're in a higher institution like or higher ed space, you can have access to these conversations. Mm-hmm. I love that UCLA, USC, and even Oaxacal, they've opened it to like general guests.
So it's a little harder for Berkeley because it's such a college city, whereas in like USC and UCLA, it's like right in LA. Berkeley's like, oh, Berkeley, and then Bay Area, you know? So whenever we did get a chance to meet other Oaxaqueños in the Bay Area, like that weren't from UC Berkeley, that was pretty dope. Like, I know Tefan's from San Jose. She wasn't there during the time, but I immediately thought of her when thinking of Bay Area Oaxacans, because like I know the world of LA Oaxacans, but to explore Bay Area Oaxacan culture, like that, that was pretty nice too.
Yeah, and now even Tefan, they're also super amazing, and we just got to see them while they were in LA.
Yeah, I know Tefan's like now a Oaxacan superstar, so super proud of her too. But yeah, that now luckily we have those in-person spaces, but again, luckily they're being more open to like the public. But the ones that are more so in the mix are those in the institution, students, but we always talk about the importance of having a social media community presence, because that's the difference that Melly and I really brainstormed when, or not even brainstormed, like started recognizing when talking about Las Voces del Pueblo. We have different generations. How can we bring them into this conversation and into the mix and like take into consideration their opinions and what they have to say about this specific conversation topic? One thing we noticed was our elders don't use social media the way we do. And I'm not counting Facebook. In terms of Instagram, Twitter, I guess TikTok now is a really big one that I would love for our elders to get on, because it has a lot of like informative conversations about what's happening back in Oaxaca when the fires were starting. My main form of news about that was TikTok, because it's so fast paced and so like the videos are just there, and we also have, as a newer generation, we don't have as much, we lose our attention really quickly. And so TikTok has helped that, like still spread the message in a way that our youth are able to like still listen to it. And our elders, they really have taken on Facebook. Less and less of us are using Facebook, I guess, for our own personal reasons or preferences. But when it comes to that intergenerational kind of dynamic online, it's very separate. So we have the elders on Facebook, and then we have Instagram, Twitter, TikTok, I would say would be the three main kind of tools. That was the thing why we wanted to bring in all generations and be inclusive, because they're missing out on the conversations that are being had on Instagram, on TikTok, and we also are missing out on the conversations they're having on Facebook. How do they organize? How do they continue preserving traditions that we may not even know about because they're getting lost in translation? And then there's so many conversations happening on Instagram, X, whatever, that we don't really include our elders on. And I would love to, because sometimes they might not agree. Sometimes they do. When they don't agree, I would love to hear why. I think one of the things I really focus on in our own family dynamic, and even in general, is like sometimes we don't have real conversations. Sometimes it's like, oh, they're disagreeing. It's starting to get uncomfortable. Let's just drop it.
Yeah.
But it's
just
like,
walk away.
Why can't we have a respectable conversation, regardless of my age, if I'm young, if I'm older? Like, why don't we just talk? I'm trying to see where you're coming from, because I think our opinions are ultimately formed because of our own personal experiences, and acknowledging that our elders' experience coming here isn't the same as our experience being born here, or those who migrated here at a very young age compared to migrating here with 3 or 4 kids or something. Like it's different for everyone. And through Las Voces del Pueblo, we're really trying to zone in on this ability to have conversations, even with disagreement among different generations in our family, where it doesn't have to get like touchy and like, oh, just drop it. No, we can have conversations that
like even then uncomfortable conversations do start a whole new space. Like we're getting uncomfortable because there's something that like at times, like although we do want to acknowledge like triggers and like that at times they don't want to relive certain situations, we also have to remind each other that we no longer want to continue creating this division within our generation, within our own spaces, because we're not creating powerful dynamics. We're just creating our own spaces and excluding each other. So I know that's been interesting. I know there's been different friends of ours that have also added like, wow, like these conversations you're having with your family are conversations I can have with mine. So we're like, we should bring it on air. We should show our faces. and we should really see what people have to say.
Yeah, and the reason why we wanted to bring in video more so is like for the guests and obviously for us, but the guests that we want to bring on, they're community members, they're friends, they're people we've grown up with, they're family sometimes, you know.
And even then, in the city of LA, you do hear about Oaxaqueños often.
Everywhere.
Exactly, especially now.
Enough for Congress people to be talking about us.
Very true, which we did want to highlight, and that will have its own episode.
That needs its own episode because
we have a lot of things to say. But the fact that Oaxaca, as a state, is loved by many, but often our actual community members are nowhere to be found within these conversations unless they want to have something out of our own experience. So we do want to acknowledge the fact that we...
Exactly. The internet loves Oaxaca.
Yes.
TikTok loves Oaxaca. Instagram Reels love Oaxaca. Like, why? Because Oaxaca is beautiful. So are the people, and so are the things that they have to say. And oftentimes we're not included. Our voice, our opinion isn't included in, oh, this is happening in Oaxaca. You know, not only Oaxaca, but also Oaxaca, California now. Because it's officially been recognized after the whole Neri Martinez situation. Oaxaca, California made itself known during all those nights of protest after anti-Indigenous rhetoric because there's power in our numbers. You tell us, oh, this happened. We have to get together as a collective. We will be there because that is our Indigenous practice. We know how to get together as a collective, how to mobilize and get to, you know, and they didn't see that until recently when we've lived that our entire lives. And so that's why we want to bring them into the conversation. A topic I'm really excited for the roundtable community discussions is the conversation of social media presence that we were talking about right now, because again, I've also discovered a lot of researchers and people doing this work in representation of Oaxaca. Luckily, I've only encountered Oaxacan researchers and educators through Twitter and, you know, Instagram that are doing this work. During my time in college is when I was really kind of looking for this type of material and finding it. And it's because through our own social circles, oh, you need to get connected with so-and-so. Oh, I know them. Da, 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 da. And that's how it's a whole network type of thing.
It's so fun to get to cite your friends, your community members on your paper for school. And I'm like, I know this person outside of academia. They're now getting the chance to actually get their work out there because oftentimes it isn't Oaxaqueños doing research on Oaxaqueños. It has been, and I've seen it now more through a photo perspective where I'm like searching and citing my photo assignments. And I'm like, wow, like I found this beautiful photo of early, or like back in the day of Oaxaca, what it was. But then you see who the photographer is, and I'm like, what were you doing in Oaxaca? And like, why can't I? Yes, yeah. Like.
Especially during that time, because yeah, it's. Oaxaca has, I mean, the pueblo specifically, at least our pueblo makes it, there's certain pueblos that make it difficult for people to access for a reason.
And we will continue fighting for that. Like, it will stay like that.
So when you look at a picture like that, you're very much like, how did you get there and what were you doing? And how were you received? Because our community does not play sometimes.
Well, even then, like, if you, seeing it, how our mom was, like, raised and hearing how she was raised, actually, knowing that language barriers were a big thing back then, like continue being a big thing because you can go into Oaxaca now and just be a tourist and be like, oh, like, can you just stand there? But then they look at you funny because they're also like, who are you and why are you approaching me like this? Now seeing that like in photo books and seeing like, wow, someone made an entire career out of our beautiful like features, like the fact that a lot of these people don't know that they're part of these photo books. That was one of the goals I had for my La Raíz project, which I'll like dive into another day. But my project with photography was very much like I am highlighting and recognizing the women, the Indigenous women that helped my mom raise me. I included all my aunts, and their pictures were printed in very large scales because they are the main women in the family. Then I made sure to document my cousins, my sisters, everyone that was part of this family, like, was going to have its own print. And I really saw that as in my work highlights Indigenous women. The long-term goal is to continue highlighting people outside of my family. But it's well-deserved because there are people out there that continue romanticizing Indigenous traditions, people, and even like the way we dress, but will never acknowledge the fact that Indigenous voices continue existing to this day.
Even the conversation of mushrooms in Oaxaca and white folks going in there and foraging mushrooms. It's a whole conversation. And yes, we'll make space for that some other time because that's what we do here. But I think through your photography, through La Raíz, like you said, it was, and if you want to learn more about La Raíz, you could check out your website and your Instagram page, right? Yes. Do you want to share that?
Oh, it's Melly YT, MELLYT. But yes, I launched an entire like personal project through the Bridge program, which I was part of this past fall term, and I really dived into, again, highlighting.
And you really grew as a photographer through the Bridge program too, and La Raíz was your final showcase to prove like, this is how I started as a photographer, this is like where I'm at now, and like the improvement was just very obvious. It was it was strong, and through that project you highlighted our family, each family dynamic, so the different families that are in, the Bautista dynamic, but I think it speaks to a really important message of, through La Serranita, we're taking back our power as Indigenous women. You as a photographer, you saw non-Oaxacan people document Oaxacan traditions and people and views and sites in Oaxaca. You as a Oaxacan woman, as a photographer now, you're the one documenting and you're starting off with our family. Us as like community members, we've seen traditionally Oaxacan folks get excluded from the overall conversation of not even of Latinidad and Latinos and like, so what are we gonna do? We're bringing a space that makes space for other Oaxacans to really share their voice through this new segment, which is Las Voces del Pueblo.
We're actually passing the mic, which was always like the goal at the end of the day. Like, from the first clip we uploaded, we knew this conversation has to be shared. People are feeling some type of way, and then they started sharing like, we want more of this. So now we want them to actually be part of the setup, be part of like the recording process, and actually get the space to actually have these conversations with us, which is really exciting.
Yeah, because a thing that people share with us is like you said, they get really inspired by the type of conversations that we've had in our own family. And because we know how to navigate these conversations, thanks to our mom and our family, we're able to guide other people who have shared, I've never traditionally had these conversations within my own family. And that's okay, people have different upbringings, different traumas within their own family. Some things can be talked about, some things are too touchy, some things just you don't even bring up. That's fine, but if you as now a grown-up, because this is the things like you were taught at a young age not to bring this up, but you, now that you're older, you want to start including more conversations or finding a way to introduce these type of conversations into your family to change the dynamic. We want to help you learn to do that, and get more comfortable with even being in front of a mic, and because a lot of our community is sometimes shy or too humble to be in front of a mic and say, I have this to say. Like, no, it doesn't matter. Your opinion matters. What you have to say matters. And that's exactly why we're going to launch this new segment.
It's an entire new season.
It is an entire new season. So with season 3, you're going to be getting Las Voces del Pueblo. You're going to get Melly and I back. Melly and I, in general, to sit down and like have these conversations. We've missed it. We're definitely gonna make space for just you and I, but that's why Las Voces del Pueblo will have its own segment, its own time, its own setup too. Like, we're just more so focused on the people that are gonna be joining us for those type of conversations, and then with us, it's just always free flowing. It's just Melly and I. It's been a lot going on, we're just glad to just be back on the mic. And we're looking forward to finally presenting the work that we've been doing with BizStoop, because they've been a really supportive group for us. But not only that, like, they've guided us, because it's our first grant ever. So
very true. No, like, creatively, we've had the opportunity to be as creative as possible. We've been able to ask our questions. They've really encouraged us to meet different people, to have different conversations, but also they added fuel to, like, our creative, like, to that passion that we had.
Because we were losing it for a second. Things were...
Life was just... I think we were prioritizing life, like, and being too serious about it, where we were even making time for our creative joy. So now getting to see the fact that they're happy that we're actually going to launch something. And soon you will all be hearing about it. And then hopefully right after this episode, we get to start filming and bringing the guests, because we're also excited to see who does get the opportunity to accept the invitation and join us. For this episode in particular, you do get to see us, and also you get different angles. You get a whole new setup, which is exciting. I know it's something we're starting to get used to. Mics and everything, you guys have seen it before, or at least have heard us through different mics, because Aní and I have invested in our own project.
Our own setup, but audio only. So now, thanks to BizStoop, thanks to the crew team here, like, we've been able to just also think about, introducing film, like a video version of our podcast is doable now, thanks to a collective effort.
There's always room for growth. I think, luckily, La Serranita was, again, just for funsies.
Fun, silly idea.
But overall, because we've received so much support, we also have gotten to think outside of our own box, or
more creatively, because we were, like I said, it was just a phone and us, a little mic maybe, but because of everyone's support, we're like, oh wow, we could do this and we could do that, and people really root for us, and it's allowed us to really, again, because sometimes in our culture, in our community, we're too humble with our ideas, and we're like, no, let's think small. No, our community, through the support we've gotten, they're like, think big.
Yeah, we're not letting opportunities pass by. If it's meant for us, it will come back to us, and
this one did.
Yes.
But yeah, I mean, that's pretty much our start to season 3. We actually, before we wrap it up, we have something we announced today. Actually,
we have officially announced our first ever
school supply drive.
Yes, and this drive is in dedication to our youth of the Pueblo. Mm-hmm. And we're visiting our mom's hometown. I was there last year. We actually have nieces and nephews that are in elementary. They're very, very young. So I knew last year that if Aní and I were coming back, we were going to come back
to do something for these kids. And that was our main thing. Melly was there. I said, whatever it is that they need, we're going to figure it out. We decided to do a school supply drive because there's a couple of elementary kids, students, and also middle school and high school, but mainly there's only an elementary in our pueblo. So we want to provide free backpacks and school supplies to the youth over there. So we're currently accepting donations and any supplies that you would be willing to buy and donate to this initiative. We're doing a school supply drive, and we're going to be giving it away to the students in
the summer.
In the summer, yeah.
So there's more information on our Instagram page. We will be
la.serranita.
Yes.
_ Tell your friends, tell your family. If you're not doing anything this weekend or next weekend, if you have the funds to do so, go buy some kids some binders, whatever it is that you're able to donate.
Coordinate with us, but you're all invited to take part of this initiative. It is our first ever, but not the last.
Yeah, no, very first initiative that we're doing, but we intend to just continue growing this, because the ultimate goal is, again, to give back to the communities that raised us. Our pueblo is definitely where we want to start. Yeah, but that is all. I think we're ready to wrap up. Thank you guys for just tuning in. We missed you, and we will be in touch soon. Bye, y'all.
Bye. Okay.
Was that good? Thank you, guys.
It's a wrap.
It's a wrap.